Greetings fellow gorehounds and welcome back to a Blood Splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru and today I'm going to talk about the Child's Play remake, otherwise known as Child's Play 2019. Now to get this out of the way right off the bat, I was one of those people that was 100% not on board with this remake when they first announced it. I also felt like it was a slap in the face to both the fans and the people currently working on the already established franchise that just had two movies relatively recently that are both pretty solid. I mean, that's not to say I didn't have my problems with them, but they were still ultimately good movies, so it seemed really weird to greenlight the remake now. I mean, at least let the franchise fizzle out first so that it can lie dormant for a little while, so that when you actually reboot it, it's actually a big deal. But what do I know? I'm not a big movie producer, which is probably why I'm not making the big bucks. Anyway, shame on those producers for going about this remake that way, but with that all being said, they still made the movie, and the question now is, was the movie any good? And I gotta say, surprisingly, yeah! Child's Play 2019 is actually a solid fucking remake. It's a remake that takes a lot of elements from the original movie and actually does them justice, while also adding a lot of new stuff and gels them together pretty well. I mean, there's some areas where it's a little rough around the edges, and some things are in the movie only because, well, it's Child's Play, so of course that's gonna be there. But more often than not, this movie works. All the actors give really good performances, and I would even argue that the kid in this movie gives a better performance than the kid in the original movie. Now granted, that's partially because they aged the kid up in this movie, so he's a little bit older than he was before. Which means they could cast a kid with a lot more experience than the kid from the first movie had. But even still, if you combine the kid's performance with the writing attached to it, I found myself really invested in this version of Andy. And like a lot of people, I thought that Aubrey Plaza was a really weird choice to cast as the mom. But having finally seen the movie, she's actually fantastic. I mean, she doesn't have a lot to work with, but she does a lot with a little. And on top of that, her casting choice is not that weird when you realize that this movie actually has a lot of humor. Which is something I was honestly worried they were not going to have in this movie. I thought they were just going to do like a super serial remake. But the script for this movie actually successfully imbues a whole lot of funny levity sequences in between all the creepy shit. And that's another thing. This is the first time Chucky has been outright scary to me since fucking Child's Play 2. And I really mean that. I was actually on the edge of my seat, like fucking grabbing my girlfriend's hand and squeezing it tightly during all the tense moments in this movie because holy shit is Chucky creepy in this. And that's another thing. Mark Hamill delivers a fantastic performance as this new version of Chucky, which, to warn you all, is a very different version of Chucky. This Chucky is a lot more sympathetic, for lack of a better word. And this is because of the main difference between this Child's Play and the original. You see, in the original Child's Play, if you haven't already seen it, Chucky is actually a serial killer who has been voodooed into a doll. And his original name was Charles Lee Ray, and he was played by Brad Dourif, and yada yada yada. But in this movie, because they couldn't use Charles Lee Ray because of the split rights issues of the franchise, which is a whole nother topic for a whole nother day, they instead came up with this genius idea of making Chucky a doll version of essentially an Alexa. And I say it's genius because by doing that, they were able to give Chucky all these new powers. Now no longer is it just a killer doll running around trying to stab you, though he does do that. This version of Chucky can now connect to a cloud and thus have access to all your other computer devices, including shit like security cameras, self-driving cars, and even drones. Which really solves the problem that a lot of people who hate Child's Play have, everyone's run into someone who says this, who says something to the effect of like, oh, Child's Play, that's the killer doll movie, right? Why don't they just kick him, Why don't they just fucking punch him? He's a little doll, it's like a little kid, why are you fucking scared of him? Well, motherfucker, in this movie, he now has access to all your electronic products, so you're now fucked. But even more than that, one of the things that this change in Chucky added to the movie is that in the original Child's Play, Chucky is just using Andy as a means to an end. He wants Andy's body so he doesn't have to be a doll anymore. So he really doesn't give a shit about Andy, and most of the fear in that movie comes from no one believing Andy. But in this remake, Chucky was designed with one goal and one goal alone, and that's to be your friend until the end. So this Chucky actually does care about Andy. In fact, he cares about Andy in the way like a creepy stalker would. So on top of no one believing Andy, and of course people thinking that maybe Andy is the one committing the murders, this movie added an additional element where now Chucky is actually trying to be a good friend, he just doesn't know how. Which is both super creepy and also super heartbreaking. And Mark Hamill plays this version of Chucky like a fucking boss. He knocks it out of the goddamn park. And that's not to say Brad Dourif couldn't have done a good job himself. I guarantee you he would have done just as good. It's just, I'm glad that they cast someone who was on the level of Brad Dourif if they were going to remake this. Because if Chucky didn't work, then this whole movie was going to be a complete and utter shit show. Anyway, my fellow Gorehounds, to sum it up, I fucking love the Child's Play remake. It's not perfect, but it is a very solid movie. And I'm just glad that if we were going to have this weird circumstance of two simultaneous Chucky franchises going at once, I'm glad that at least they're both pretty good. Anyway, with that all said, my fellow Gorehounds, I will include an Amazon affiliate link in the description below. And if you click that link and pre-order or buy or rent using that link, I will get a kickback from it. Oh yeah, and one more thing before I move on to the spoilers. There is animal death in this movie, so if you don't like bad things happening to pets, especially cute cuddly pets, then you might want to go see something else. And with that all said, my fellow Gorehounds, let us finally move on to the spoilers. Alright, the first thing I want to say is that I fucking love the opening of this movie. Basically, this movie opens up with this Vietnamese sweatshop, and there's this one worker who's supposed to put, like, all the safety protocols into the Chucky doll. Which, in this movie, they changed it from the good guy doll to the buddy doll, most likely for rights reasons. Like I said, that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. And basically, this one worker, as a fuck you to the working conditions of his shop, actually removes this one doll's, like, safety protocols. And then the sweatshop worker jumps off the top of the building and commits suicide. So there's no one for the big tech company to blame for what's about to happen in the movie but themselves. And I really fucking like that between that sequence and all, like, the ads the tech company puts out throughout the movie, yeah, there's a lot of not-so-subtle social commentary about the shitty work environments of places like Google, Amazon, and Apple. And I really didn't expect my Chucky movie to actually have that level of social commentary in it, so good on you, screenwriters. You didn't need to do it, but I appreciate that you did. Now, to be completely honest, there isn't much about this movie that's super spoilery that I want to talk about, except for the elements of the movie that actually don't work as well as they probably could. One of the first ones being, there's a scene in the movie in which Chucky gets his name Chucky. And the way that scene plays out is basically the doll's all like, hey, what's my name? You're supposed to give me my name. You're my best friend till the end. And then Andy's all like, Han Solo. And then Mark Hamill Chucky's all like, did you say Chucky? Now, one thing I want to make very clear about this scene is that it is admittedly really funny. So on one hand, I did enjoy that moment, but on the other hand, it really doesn't make much sense. Because there really is no actual reason why the doll heard Chucky out of Han Solo that makes any sense, outside of the fact that, of course, he's going to be called Chucky, it's a Child's Play movie. And I just feel like they could have worked a little bit harder to make the name Chucky work better with their plot. But it is such a tiny nitpick that I almost feel bad bringing it up, because like I said, the scene is funny. It just makes no sense. And there's a couple other moments here and there throughout the movie where things like that happen, things that are only happening because it's a Child's Play movie and not because it makes the most sense. And while I did notice them, and they did bug me when I initially noticed them, they don't actually deter from the overall quality of the film. It's still pretty solid, and when it comes to remakes of 80s slasher movies, it's one of the better ones out there. Anyway, there's one last thing I want to talk about that is really fucking spoilery, so if you don't want the last act of the movie spoiled for you, then stop right here. So the finale of this movie is fucking insane, and goddamn did I enjoy the fuck out of it. You know how Child's Play 2 has that great finale where they're fighting inside one of the factories that makes the good guy dolls? Well, this movie decided to one-up that by having the finale take place in basically what's essentially the Apple Store of this universe. So naturally, everything within the store Chucky can actually interface with and control, which means there's fucking drones flying everywhere and he's controlling all the security cameras and all the TV sets. And there's even moments where he's fucking pulling a jigsaw, talking through the fucking screen, going all like, "Hey Andy, I'm your friend till the end. You see all these other people? They don't love you, not like I do. I'm Chucky. I will always be there for you." And first off, not only is this finale fucking nuts, it's creepy as all fuck, and on top of that, there's this ingenious thing that the screenwriters actually imbued in the script from the very get-go. And that's this. You see, it turns out that the Chucky version of the Buddy doll is actually the old version. It's the iPhone 1, and guess what? It's the next year, so of course they're coming out with an iPhone 2. And so the store is filled with all the new models of the Buddy doll, except some of these models are even creepier than Chucky himself. One of the designs, for example, looks like a fucking teddy bear, and yes, it's as creepy as you're imagining it. And I was sitting there like, god damn, I was not expecting this movie to go from Child's Play 1 to Child's Play 2, and then eventually all the way to Cult of Chucky. But goddamn, this movie found a way to do that and pull it off with fucking finesse. And with that, I am done with the spoilers. You're gonna have to see the movie for yourself to see how this all plays out. But trust me when I say, the movie knows you've seen the first movie, and it plays with those expectations hardcore. So just when you think, oh, this scene's gonna happen now, something else is gonna happen. And most of the time, it's equally as good. I'm just as shocked as all of you are. Anyway, my fellow gorehounds, say what you can about the way they went about making this movie. At the end of the day, the final product is pretty fucking good. So if there was a part of you that was sitting on the fence wondering whether you should see it or not, then at least know that if you do, you'll probably enjoy yourself. But if you still don't want to see it because you're offended on behalf of Don Mancini and everyone who worked their asses off on the original franchise, then I totally understand that and support you 100%. And with that said, my fellow gorehounds, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so that you're notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. And in case you didn't know, I happen to have a Patreon that I will also link in the description below. And if you want to subscribe to that to help the channel more directly, even $1 a month can go a long way. And with that all said, my fellow gorehounds, peace out, and I'll catch y'all later.